Hey there, Exiles. Welcome back to the Gunners Guild. Though, I guess for post stuff, I should be calling it the Golem's Guild, because that's pretty much what I mostly play. Anyway, I figured I'd make a new video about the Golem Bomber Elementalist build since I've been running it for like 4 leagues now, and a lot has kind of changed, but it's still, kind of how it is. It's a little different. So, the build works perfectly fine, both Chaos and the Fire Damage versions. I've been playing them both. But let's just get into what's changed since last league. First is that I gutted the damage on this build, unfortunately, for 2 reasons. One is that I wanted to get more defenses, since both Melding on the Flesh and Spell Suppression got gutted. The only way I could see that being done is by going with full block and full spell block without glancing blows. Yes, I know glancing blows in Aegis Aurora is super powerful and more than durable enough, but my budget was kind of tight this league, and Aegis's were like 14 divines, so not really in it for me. So instead, I went full block through the use of Mistress of Sacrifice via the Forbidden Flesh and Flames, which are about 1 divine apiece, and I had to drop the Primordial Might Jewels to do that, so I did lose a good chunk of damage, minion life, which is damage, and a golem. But in the end, I did manage to get full block and spell block, over 5k HP, plenty of defenses to go around, at the cost of a fair bit of my damage, I'm afraid. So we're pushing about 12 million boss DPS right now, which isn't awful. Everything still melts pretty fast, and the only things that can really hurt us now are degens, which is still something I'm trying to fix. The other reason why I gutted the damage is because I really just didn't have the budget to put in all the really big powerful stuff, because with the loss of like minion life and such, like trying to fill in all these extra little nooks and crannies and keep my defenses up just wasn't really going to happen. So we did have to take away a lot. But let's take a closer look at the items. Of course, we have Mob Mischief as the build revolves around this. There is plenty of flexibility with the gem slots, but I've opted for Unbound Ailments, which is going to boost our ignites as well as our shock, which I'll get to in a minute, burning damage support, cruelty, and deadly ailments. Swift Affliction works in place of pretty much any of these. I know a lot of people don't like cruelty. But the shield, which is going to be the other core piece of the setup, is a Corrupted Invictus Solaris, granting us +3 to socketed gems, life, fire, Aegis, and ignite immunity. It's a good thing too, because we don't run Purity of Elements, but we can still be a freeze immune via the Pantheon, shock immune from Tempest Shield, and then this gives us our ignite immunity. With a level 4 in power, we do get level 30 golems right here with no other plus skills from Wand or Neck. You can also get a shield with +2 to minion gems. It'll be basically the exact same thing. Speaking of the wand though, the wand is just a double dot multi-wand with Triggercraft on it. It's super cheap, to be honest. I think it was like 60 or 80 chaos, maybe a divine tops. Dot multi is huge for this build. About 24% will equate to the difference in HP loss due to like a whole level from a golem. So like you kind of want to balance your dot multi with your golem levels. This wand is going to trigger our Desecrate and our Bone Offering for our block. The amulet here, again, just dot amulet with some life, super cheap. I think it was less than a divine, maybe a divine now. I don't know, prices are kind of crazy. I didn't want this build to revolve around Ashes as the Stars, as that's too costly. It's like 14 divines, and honestly, we don't really need it anymore. Golems lost the life with quality, so there's not a whole lot to be gained from this. Chest piece, just flat life and resistances with the Eldritch modifiers for Malevolence and Offerings. We do store all our auras and our Enlighten here, and while I do run Herald of Purity, it's not mandatory. I like the extra guys for clearing and making bigger explosions when I need it, but their life is so low that they're really only good for clearing white trash. Still though, it's less downtime while you wait for golems to revive. Rings are of course Barracks Respite, which is going to help our clear speed tremendously, but I do also swap this out for Call of the Void for bosses, since we don't need Barracks Respite for bossing, obviously. Call of the Void just gives us added protection in the form of chill, and even though we can technically get chilled ourselves, thanks to our block, it rarely happens. So this is where the whole Tri-Ailment comes in. We're going to be doing ignites, shocks, and then chills on bosses. The other ring, just life, resistances, all that stuff. Boots, gloves, and belts, again, all pretty standard, life, resistances, filling in what you need like strength and dex. The last piece of notable gear is the Broken Circle Flask, so we can sustain our endurance charges. I have this set up to be used on full charges, but that's probably not the most efficient way to be using it, especially for bossing. Moving on to the passive tree, no real changes here, typical minion tree with some fire dot nodes in there. At the top here, we did throw in our Thread of Hope, so we can grab the Life Nodes, Breath of Flames, Golem, Commander, and Arcane Will. Don't skip out on Arcane Will, it solves all your mana problems with channeling Death Wish. If I had another point to spare, I'd also get Breath of the Lightning to scale our shocks even more, because you could basically get 40% shocks like no problem. This cluster has our replica Reckless Defense for the last bit of block and spell block we needed, and we're immune to all those ailments, so no worries there. Left side, we get the extra ailment effect for the shocks because, again, we're going to be running shocks. We also run energized armor here to scale our armor a lot more, which does make us lose a lot of energy shield, but another reason why Aegis isn't really going to be a great fit for us this time around. The cluster down here has the forbidden Flesh and Flame, and we have a Watcher's Eye over here with the block on determination and malevolence with ailments. For the Ascendancy, if you're going to go fire damage, you definitely want Mastermind of Discord. 25% extra exposure is huge, so we almost get 40% exposure on hit with our gloves, plus flammability. It's a lot of minus fire res. If you're going to be using Black Flame and doing Chaos instead, Elementalist is a good choice because not only do you get the extra Golem, which is going to help your clear, but you also get extra HP regen from Stone Golems since you're going to have more, and because we have Primordial Bond on those large clusters, it's going to give us an extra 20% damage. Speaking of the Chaos version though, the only things you really need to change are of course putting Black Flame on your second ring slot, which will put your Chaos resistance up to like 50% or so, great. But also you can get rid of Flammability and run Despair instead, and then you can get rid of Flame Surge and then put Anomalous Withering Step in so you can get in your Withers. Flame Surge still works, but since we're not going to be reducing fire resistances at all, it's not going to be hitting as hard. The Chaos version also has the added bonus of being able to run super fast thanks to Withering Step. But also now you have to manage Molten Shell and Withering Steps, so only one can be on left click. Casting damage taken is probably a better bet in this place, and then you just take out something like Arcane Surge. Anyway, the build performs about the same as it has for several leagues now. It's great at mapping, it's pretty good at bosses, there's not really anything that can take this thing down besides degens. But this league we did have to lose a little bit of our damage to keep our survivability up. Again, with more budget though, you can definitely pump this thing to do tons of damage. I'm not saying 12 million is a cap, you can easily get to like 20-25 million with the Aegis setup with like a Skin of the Loyal with minions and Socket Gen corrupted, and then grab Glancing Blows and go full ham on your DPS. But that's just not in the cards for me, so I went more tanky this league. But that's just an update on my favorite build though, it still works in 3.19. Thank you all for watching, and good luck out there, Exiles.